Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackman.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackman, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football. It's up for grabs. It's covered in the end zone by Will Blackman for a Green Bay touchdown.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackman, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. I'm Rick Bucher. You can find my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can follow me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. He is Will Blackman, Super Bowl champ, NFL vet. You can find him on NFL Network. You can find him on Twitter at Will Blackman. And you can follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at Bucher Friends. All right. We have a very special guest joining us for this podcast, but only for a couple minutes. She's busy. She's got a lot of things to do. It's Chance Bucher, my daughter, 15-year-old daughter. Yes. And the reason that we're having her on is because as of right now, she is the leader of the Bucher and Friends podcast bracket challenge. And Will, since in our last podcast, I interviewed your wife, I figured...
Interrogated. Wow, bro.
Well, I had a lot of questions to ask her, and she was very forthcoming. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity, in case there was anything that you wanted to ask Chance, since she is the leader of our podcast. Our bracket challenge. Not that has to be the subject, but I just thought I'd throw it open.
How sensitive is your dad?
Oh, wow!
Never mind, I got my answer. Anyhow, continue.
You have to step up.
I'm supposed to answer that?
Yes, you're supposed to answer that.
Very.
Oh, what?
I'm kidding.
Well, I have a question for you, Chance. Please explain why it is, or how it is, that you are leading this bracket challenge when, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first and only time you have ever participated in an NCAA bracket challenge. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
So what do you owe your success to this point?
I don't know.
Listen, I'll tell you what. I was sitting pretty.
Yes, you were.
I was like, this is my first bracket ever.
Yeah.
I'm sitting nice.
Yeah.
And then today I just got demolished.
Yeah, I know. How is it looking forward? Because here's the thing. Chance has Duke and North Carolina in the final, which looks really smart right now.
Right.
I mean, it's not as if there's the other shoe is going to drop. That's do you have the same?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are still in a strong position.
I'm still in a strong, but Villanova killed me.
Yeah. Well,
that's who ruined me.
Yeah.
And then, my gosh, dude.
Chance doesn't really get the concept of podcasts. We're like, podcasts, they can only hear us. So if you're not talking...
So what am I supposed to say?
You invited her. She's just sitting here enjoying her first place. Yes. She has nothing to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, you know what? Let me turn it around before we say goodbye, Chance. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you would like to say to Will?
The floor is yours.
The floor is yours, and you can ask him about anything. You can ask him about being in the NFL. You can ask him about falling off after breathing down your neck at the beginning of the bracket challenge, and now suddenly having faded hard in the last 24 hours. You can ask him whatever. You can ask him about his Christmas card.
No.
You thought that was funny too? You were in on that joke?
No.
Yeah, wow.
Yep. She was amused by that as well.
Oh, good. It was a great card, though.
It was a very good look. You have a great looking family. It was the space between your kids and you.
Look at the head honcho. You know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The good looks start with the Blackman part of Bucher and Blackman's.
All right, Chance. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? You got to stop. You're just a chatterbox.
What?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you coming back?
Coming back.
Yeah, you're getting back, like, you're gonna come back second place.
Oh, hey, you know what? It's time for bed. Thank you, Chance, for joining this podcast. It's been great.
All right.
It's been great.
That was it. That was a sneaky cut, wasn't it? Are you coming back for second place? Very nice.
That was well done.
Yeah. That's a sneaky smoke right there. All right. Number of things we need to get into. And let's stay with the NCAA tournament. Something that obviously caught a lot of people's interest. There's two things. One, I tweeted out that Zion Williamson has these custom shoes that are plastered all over. I'm kind of paraphrasing. Plastered all over social media. CBS had a camera operator, a camera, and a microphone dedicated to Zion Williamson. And yet, he can't make a dime off of he doesn't get any of the billions. That's all attributed to the NCAA and Duke and whatnot. And I said, what a joke. Last I checked, that got like 6,000 likes and some 2,000 retweets. Quite possibly the most popular thing I've ever tweeted out. And I just wonder, yeah. And I mean, obviously it struck a chord with the public. It's not as if it's really that unique. People have questioned this, but I think Zion brings it to another level. With, you see what the tickets are going for. He was an attraction long before he went to Duke. I mean, YouTube sensation. People who aren't necessarily into the tournament or into basketball are fascinated and aware of Zion Williamson. And he's just generating so much interest and buzz and money for the NCAA. And the fact that he can't profit off of any of it, I think takes this whole concept to another level. And so I wonder for you, Will, as a former professional athlete, when you see this happening with Zion, albeit in a different sport, what is your feeling?
I kind of get the same feeling for when it comes down to the Heisman race in college football. These schools are, pumping out all these things to support their player, all these things to market and try to help them win the Heisman, because obviously if they win the Heisman, it looks good for the school as well.
Right.
So that's the only thing I can think of is in that regards. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, we can find numerous things in terms of that's unfair. It's just, at the end of the day, it is what it is.
I think this becomes an extreme. The problem that I have is that everybody says, it would ruin college sports. How are you going to figure it out? Are you going to pay everybody? Are you going to lose the ancillary sports that these funds pay for? As if it's some Rubik's Cube with a couple pieces missing. As if it's just impossible to figure out how you make a deal where the players that are as marquee as Zion Williamson get to share in the proceeds. Like business deals aren't done every single day where you don't know exactly how you split it up, but you find something that's equitable. You find a way to cut people in and be fair. And
I don't know how they'll do that, though. I do not know how they'll be able to do that.
Okay, well, one of the things that has been suggested is that he gets to profit off of his likeness. And he's able to market his likeness. What's wrong with that?
That's valid. I totally agree.
And yet, so
that's why they stopped the whole NCAA video games, is because of that.
Right. But yet, I mean, look, he's selling jerseys. His name's on it. Why shouldn't he be able to take advantage of that? And if there's some other player out there who has a marketable jersey and can make money off of it, why shouldn't they? I mean, that to me, then you're not paying for everybody. And here's the other part too that I have a hard time believing is that if you compensated the players, that all these other sports would go away. You're talking about billions of dollars being made off of the NCAA tournament in and of itself. Not millions, billions being made. You're telling me that if you shared a little bit of that, take the the 7 executive vice presidents that you have, and you trim what they're not all making 7 figures. They're all making high 6 figures. You're telling me that there's not a way to make this more equitable. On the face of it, business deals.
There is a way. They just refuse to acknowledge it.
Yes. Well,
I'm sure it has been brought to them several times. There are several ways.
But here's the thing, Will, and this is what struck me in the reaction. And look, I don't know what percentage of the people there are or the fans that are, but there are a surprising number of fans who say, "Oh, he'll be all right. He'll make money." Like Duke is doing him a favor. Right. He's expanding his marketability. They sound like
everybody else in the NCAA, because that's exactly what they're thinking.
Yes, they're supporting the NCAA's position. And I guarantee you, the fans that are doing that are not millionaires and billionaires. They're not owners of franchises or entities. They're worker bees, just like the players are in this equation. And there's this weird idea that athletes, because at some point they make hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions, that they're the elite. And it's like, no, they're not. They have an elite skill, and they're in an elite circle, but they're not elite as far as the social structure is, because they only get to visit that space for a very short time compared to the other side. Like, fans siding with owners or fans siding with institutions just seems completely backward to me, because they have more in common with the athletes than they do with the owners and the school presidents and the directors of the NCAA. That's the part that, when they're out there arguing on behalf of the NCAA or the NFL owners or the NBA owners, that's where I don't understand how they adopt that mentality. And yet it's one of the reasons why the NCAA gets to continue to do what it does, because there's in the court of public opinion, there's still there's still plenty of people who don't want it to change, who don't think it should change, who are afraid of it changing. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No,
but
my thing is, here's my issue. So, like, when it comes to like politics and stuff like that, like, I'm not the first to step up and say much, because until I know there's an actual solution. Yeah. You know?
Well, but there is. Will, you just said it. There is a solution.
No, but I'm saying in terms of like, right, no, we did. You're right. We did profit off the likeness. You're absolutely right. But my point is, if there isn't anything substantial that I can like say or bring up, then I'm like whatever about it.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenge too is understanding, and I'm guilty of this, or I find myself in this camp. Like, I don't know everything. So once upon a time, I did an in-depth piece on the San Jose State athletic department and how they generated their funds, where those funds went, how the program worked. And this was the most amazing thing, is that their budget, it was a relatively small budget for a Division I school. Let's say the budget was, let's say it was $20 million. The budget for the school was $250 million or $300 million. And that's where we look at these schools and, like, we're so focused on the athletic budget, but in the big scheme of things, there's a lot of money being poured into universities that we don't focus on. Like, where's the science money going? Where's the liberal arts money going? Right. Where's the music department how is that being utilized?
At least, like, for our son's school, our kid's school rather, because both our kids go to the same school, they will have fundraisers and they will tell you, hey, you guys are bidding on this is what's going here.
Yeah.
They're showing us exactly. Like, hey, we need computers to put in iPads to put in all the classrooms.
Right.
And damn right, we show up and there's iPads in those classrooms.
By the way, I was the auctioneer. I was a master of ceremonies and the auctioneer for the first time I've ever done it. I did it for one of our local schools as a fundraiser. And I started out by saying, look, I know everybody wants to say this is for the kids. This isn't about the kids. This is about competition. You do not want to be outbid for whatever it is you're going after. And I want each one of you to pick an item and say, I will not be outbid for this.
Was it a dry event?
No.
Well, there you go. That's perfect.
We did well. We did very well. You know
That's
what?
awesome.
You know what? One of the best items that I got them to to bid way beyond what should have been was a parking space, a dedicated parking space for a year.
Listen, that is a beast mode right there. We had one of Shauna's friends. She did not sit down.
Yeah.
She was like, "I'm getting that damn parking spot."
Yep,
Okay.
Yep. That's what I had it going, man. I had it going.
Yeah, that she didn't. I'm telling you, she stood up. She looked at her husband. Her husband gave her the okay.
See, and
she stood up.
And that's how I played it. I said, "All right."
Actually, no, she didn't even look at him because last year she won the parking spot. So this year she's like, unlimited. We'll do a standing up.
Yep.
Until that person wants to sit down.
So I asked all of the people in the room who drive the kids to school to raise their hands. And then I had all the significant others raise their hands. And I said, all right, the first group needs to look at the second group and say, you better get this for me because this is a life changer. And having a dedicated parking space. Because now I don't have to worry about getting there or finding a spot, getting the kids there.
Having to do drop off.
Exactly.
Like,
if you love your significant other, you will make this happen. And
that is funny. That is a hot item.
Yeah, it worked. It worked like a charm. All right. So the other item that I wanted to get to, other than Zion, and you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but it was the whole dust up between Aaron Henry and Tom Izzo at Michigan State. A lot of people took exception to Izzo yelling at Aaron Henry, how that went down. Some of the other players kind of jumping in, holding Izzo back. I don't think it was Izzo was like going to physically confront him. He sort of kind of went at him, took a step toward him, but I don't believe that was ever going to be physical. But that is another very polarizing subject in terms of how coaches address players, particularly in games, but I guess it applies to practice too. But the level of harshness and combativeness in those conversations. You've obviously been coached at a lot of levels, at a very high level, and in very heated.
I had some beast. Okay.
Yeah. Like who?
Okay.
Who's the biggest beast?
My Pop Warner coach when I was 7 years old. Okay. He used to light us up.
You remember what he used to say? Like his pet phrases or like.
I don't remember what he used to say because I'm like, as soon as I hear him, I know we got to run. I know we got. I remember it was like my third practice, I think it was. And he tore me. I think I like jumped off sides. I did something and he went off. And I looked at my dad. My dad turned his back on me. My dad turned his back and walked away. I was like, wow, really?
And so what was the message you got from that?
The message was, your coach got it handled. What do you want me to do? That's your coach. You better figure it out. You better learn. Now, was he like being abusive, like hitting me or pushing me, throwing me? No, he wasn't doing any of that. It's at the end of the day, it's like all these coaches and their parents, they were all friends. Mm-hmm. The coach wanted us to do well. This is a volunteer. These coaches aren't getting paid.
But you were 7.
7.
Yeah.
And he wanted, but you know what though? Plus where I grew up, it was different. The kids were different. He made it hard because the kids who really wanted to play football would stayed, right. And the kids who were like, oh, this is way too much, they quit. And that brings to my next point. It's like, I'm looking for one professional athlete that has made it without getting yelled at, without getting chewed out, without getting cut. That's why in the NFL, it's 1% that actually make it. Yeah, part of it's, you want health. You got to be talented, but can you handle it? Like I told you, there's what? A lot of 4-3s on the street.
A lot of 4-3s on the street, bro.
A lot of 4-3s on the street because mentally they can't handle it.
Right.
There were some guys my rookie year when I got to Green Bay. There were some players where, there are exceptions to the rule. Coach is not going to say anything to Charles Woodson.
Right.
No, he may try, but he's an exception to the rule. Now you may think, I'm a professional athlete. You're not going to yell at me, but Now
why wouldn't he yell at Woodson?
Because what is it going to do?
But that's the pro level too.
Yeah, right? I'm speaking pro level, but I'm saying there are guys who. So okay, I remember one time I got yelled at by a coach, and I started talking back. Okay. Right, this is the pros.
Yep.
Like I started talking right back to him, and then I remember Al Harris,
head coach or position coach,
at one of our coordinators.
Okay.
I remember Al Harris pulled me aside, and he's like, the coordinator was Bob Sanders. I'll say who it is. I don't care. Al Harris pulled me aside. He's like, Black. He said, you got to play the game. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, you're not me. You're not Wood. You got to play the game. You have to understand whatever. He's going to do what he do. Because at the end of the day, if you start talking back, you start putting out this bad energy like Will is not coachable. Will doesn't listen. He has the right to go right upstairs to the head man and tell them because it's always going to be his word against yours. Always. So this is the pro level. He's like, you got to play the game. Okay, and that's what I learned about that part. But let me go back a little bit when I was saying that when I was 7, I knew our coaches wanted us to do well. I knew that he wanted us to succeed. I knew that he wanted to make us tough. He wanted to make us winners, And then when we had our banquets and dinners, he was really cool, always in touch with us, made sure like, hey, if you have bad grades, you can't play. Like he really cared about us. And I grew up in a pretty rough area, but he cared. So I'm like, I know where his heart is. So if he's yelling at me, whatever, because I know it's not him trying to abuse me. Same thing when I got to high school. I had I go to high school straight from Pop Warner, another coach on us, aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't wear gloves, you couldn't do anything. Like he was strict, crazy, But at the end, I did. But lo and behold, he did all my recruiting for me. He sent out a tape to all these colleges telling them I was 6'2", 190, and I was a certain level speed. I was not even close to that. And everybody was curious. I wasn't that height, but I was better than what he put it as, He came to all my all-star games. He flew everywhere. He came to anything he could. Took care of me. Same thing, when I got to college. I had Tom O'Brien, military background, real strict. Everyone's like, man, everyone's scared of him. Some people didn't like him. But he graduated, 98% of his kids every year. They all got degrees.
Yeah.
And he truly tried to develop men. So my point is, when a coach wants it for you, when a coach wants you to succeed, when he wants to do well, that's usually where you win the kid over. Now, if you're just yelling because you have an ego,
right, or you're frustrated with something else, right?
Yeah, you're frustrated and you have an ego. So I remember this is the NFL. I think one of my coaches made a mistake, whatever, and was frustrated. And he told one of our players, he said, close that damn iPad before I throw it across the room. Called out one of the young guys, a rookie. And I took it like, damn, bro. Like, was it that serious? And so when the other positions left, our group stayed, the defensive backs. And I was like, yo, coach. I was like, was that necessary? And I remember one of my teams was like, hey, Will, there's an exception to the rule. I was like, I understand exception to the rule. Like, this is like my 12th year or 10th year. I know exception to the rule. But in this case, I'm like, dude, you were frustrated because you effed up a call. And you were mad because, we had a rule back in training camp that says you can't have your iPad on when coach is talking. It was like October, and people been doing it. And he got mad and called out this guy. I was like, I'm not cool with that.
Yeah.
I understand. Like, I hear you're frustrated, but don't take it on to somebody because he won't do anything back or say anything to you.
And if it's been going on all year, cracking the whip now, that's unfair.
Yeah, if so-and-so making $15 million opened up his iPad, you won't see a damn thing.
Right.
But don't, because you messed up a call, because he literally just screwed up. and then got mad and took it out on this one kid. That's where I'm like, come on, man, I can't deal with that, like ego stuff. Like, that's not cool, especially because we're all here together. We're all here to win. And he actually called me later, and he was like, man, I thought about what you said, and you were absolutely right.
Well, good on him. Good on him. Because you know what? There's some coaches that they'd never give that up.
No, they won't.
Like that would be.
Coach, go ahead.
Yeah, they would feel like that threatened their authority if they admitted that they made a mistake.
But I'm the guy where, listen, let's figure this out, because this is not cool. I had a guy who, same thing. He felt threatened by my authority because I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Let's figure it out. But come to find out, he looked back and thought on what I said. This is a different coach. He was on his 18th job. You're on your 18th job.
Yeah.
He had a meeting. He came to a meeting one day and had a notebook out. He was like, well, I thought about what you said. This is in front of the group. So I really got through to him. This is a different coach. He said, I'm looking at the common denominator, and yeah, this is like my 18th job, man. He said, and I look at it, and all of it was because my ego got in the way.
Wow. Good for him. Good for you for pointing that out.
Whisperer.
Which...
Anyhow, sorry to go on that. That's a big deal to me, because I can't stand when coaches are frustrated and they get mad when it's like I see all the time. I live in Orange County, man. This is like the capital of trophy kids or coaches with egos, man. Like, I'm like, chill out. No, you don't have to yell at everybody. You don't, because some kids can take it, some kids can't. You have to know your personnel. Okay. I don't cuss or yell at kids. But I look at them like, hey, if it's like the 10th time, they know what it is. I'm like, dude, what's up?
You know what my favorite?
What it is, they end up being, instead of being like scared of me, they're disappointed in themselves because they felt like they let me down because they should have known better.
This is my favorite trick when it comes to coaching, and you got a kid who keeps screwing up, is the first time I make him run. The next time I make everybody else run and he has to watch. When you're doing it, and ultimately, if you're consistently making the same mistake, you're not doing it to me, you're doing it to the team. Right. That's who you should be responsible to. And to me, that, like, standing there and having all your teammates run because you keep doing, like, whatever it is, like just goofing around or not paying attention or screwing up the play or whatever it might be, I found that brings it home, and it also keeps things off of me. It doesn't become me against the kid.
They do it in wrestling. They do it in my son's wrestling. They make everyone do push-ups. This is one kid who kept messing around. They made everyone do push-ups. So now everyone was like, come on, man, like on him about it. Like, dude, you're messing up for everybody.
That's where
I totally get it.
That's where it has to come from.
My thing, though, is I always look at, okay, am I doing everything in my power so the kid knows it?
Right.
Right. So if he's messing up, several times today, all right, cool. I'll pull him aside afterwards, and we'll go over it. We'll do a quiz. I'll coach him. Like, if you don't know, let me know, because at the end of the day, I need to make sure you have all the answers. And so we'll go over it over and over it, and especially when I find out that he cares. Now, if he's just goofing off and he's always messing around, then I want nothing to do with him. I will coach the heck out of the next kid.
Right.
Yep. Put him right in there. I get you. All right.
That's good stuff. No, so relaying all of this to Tom Izzo.
Yes.
When I looked at the fact that, one, Izzo didn't bench the kid. Izzo kept the kid playing, went to him in the game. It didn't affect how he coached the kid or used the kid in the game. And the kid was coming back at Izzo. And other players were getting in the mix, whether they were talking to Izzo or they were talking to Aaron Henry. The entire team was involved, which tells me that one, they've been in this situation before. Like, there's been exchanges like this before, and everybody feels like they have ownership in the team.
It's not a dictatorship.
Exactly. They felt like they could grab Izzo and say, hey, coach, we got to, let it go. Like, to me, that tells me that they have a very healthy culture and environment. Now, I have friends of mine who work in the business who said, somebody who tweeted it out, who said, directed it to Izzo and said, Tom, if you yelled at me like that at my work, we'd have a problem. I'd have a problem. And if I wasn't getting paid and you yelled at me like that, we'd really have a problem. And I get his point, but here's the difference. Working at a publication, working in some other job is not like competing in a sport. It's not. You're in the heat of battle and emotions run, and you don't have time to sit down and talk things out.
If emotions at the highest.
Yes. And it's got to be fixed now. And quite honestly.
No, that's your point, though. It has to be fixed right now. There's no mulligan right here, bro.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, your mistake here is not something we can all kind of sit down and we can revise. Your mistake has already cost us. We can't let it cost us. We can't allow it to cost us another second. So there is an element at stake. There is a time sensitivity and pressure that very few other jobs. I mean, imagine if you're fighting a fire and a guy screws up. Are we going to get mad that you yell at that the chief yelled at that dude because he kinked the pipe?
This is life or death,
the hose
bro.
Or whatever. Yeah, and not to say that the NCAA tournament is life and death. It's not quite that, but it's the same thing. Like your life in the tournament is over if you don't get this right.
Right.
And I just don't know that many, professions or jobs where it's that critical. But and the ones that are, they're way more heated than that.
Right.
Look at Glenn Ross. Like look at the sales, business.
I was gonna say sales that's probably the only thing close.
So
is that.
Yeah. And we know how hot that can get.
They just need to stop, dude, man. Like people are quick to be like, hey, I saw the tweet that came to me that I saw was, are you okay with this?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. Like you guys have no idea. That's why, literally.
Well, then they made it a black. They made it a black and white thing too. That's
stupid. Right? I'm not gonna entertain that. It might as well it's those people. It was the same people on my team that quit. Are the same people.
Yeah.
Who have an issue with it.
I'll be honest. My daughter's varsity high school coach, just got fired or let go, moving in another direction. And I knew there was disgruntlement, and I tried to broker something that would at least find out what's everybody's issue. Why is everybody after her? Because it didn't come exclusively from the administration. Left to the administration, I don't think they fire her. It came from the players and the parents. And I don't know if the parents weren't backing their kids, that the kids would have felt the same way or would have felt empowered to say, we want her fired. Nonetheless, there are a lot of having been around, sports enterprises for 30 some years. I've been around championship ones. I've been around healthy ones. I've been around unhealthy ones. Anybody who thinks that this coach who knows the game is a really good coach. She knows the game. She lives the game. I think she almost is too consumed by the game as far as the amount of time she spends on it. But she's a really good coach and she cares.
Right.
People like that, I'll go to the wall with to try to figure out how do we make everything else work. If you don't care about the job, if you're irresponsible, if you're not dedicated, whatever, then hey, you know what happens to you. But if you're willing to put in the work and you care, then I'm going to go to bat for you. And I couldn't save her. And I look at this program, and what bothers me is no one else wants to take accountability for their part in what went wrong.
Right.
And you know what? Ultimately, you reap what you sow. But I feel like there's way too much of let's immediately blame this person, especially the coach. I mean, it's always so easy to just go, yeah, he's not doing it right. And you don't, unless you're in practice every day, unless you're around that program or that team, you can't really know. And then on the flip side, I don't know if you've experienced this. I would imagine there's coaches out there that get way too much credit because there's other elements that are making it happen, either the players or the staff or the locker room, whatever it is. And you got coaches that are like, held up there as great examples. And you're like, yeah, you know what? Ain't all that. There's a lot of other things that are contributing to why this thing's a success.
No, it's interesting. This reminds me of, now I'm not saying he's like that, but I don't know much about Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah. And
I know he's getting credit for salvaging the season with Baker. I think Baker would thrive under if my son was coaching him.
Yeah.
Because I think Baker's that talented.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, they have all these players and all this and all these, all these moves they made, but he still got to coach this year. He still has to coach. He's still got to make those crucial decisions. Not at the end of the day, it's going to be his decision. Yeah. Or is he going to go to his advisors, whether it be players or assistant coaches, and will it be his decision? He still has to coach. It's interesting.
All right. That actually does it for this episode of Bucher and Blackman. Again, drop us a rating and review on iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Screenshot the review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be entered for a chance to win some swag. In our next podcast, Johnny Manziel made his debut in the Alliance of American Football, and lo and behold, the Memphis Express won. Even though I don't know how much Johnny actually had to do with it, but he did play. And I want to get Will's take, because we've talked about this. Speaking of Baker Mayfield, guys who have an impact on teams when they come in, there's a different vibe. I don't know if Johnny has that. I don't know if he did that, but we're going to discuss that when it comes to...
He brought some swag now.
Save it! You got it. That was a tease for the next podcast in terms of where Will is going to go. He only played 3 series. All right. That's in our next podcast. So, for Will, myself, as always, thanks for listening.